I've got 6 o'clock, so we'll call to order the Village Board of Trustees, and I think Gary's gonna start us off. Village
To the flag.
of the United States
Of America.
To the republic.
which
Stands
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible,
for all.
justice for all.
Hey, could you roll?
President Larson,
Present.
Trustee Bannon,
Here.
Campbell,
Here.
Asmar,
Here.
Ward,
Here,
Ziegler,
Here.
Jervis.
Here.
You have a quorum.
What was the meeting posted?
It was posted as required by law.
Next is public participation. Public participation allows citizens to be heard on any agenda and non-agenda item. The public may also comment during the public participation section of each item. The village board shall make no decisions or consideration of action of citizen comments for items not on the agenda except to refer the matter to the village administrator for administrative consideration or to schedule the matter for board consideration at a later date. Does anyone want to speak on a non-agenda item? Bonnie?
I have a question. More questions, but I got one question. Did we buy Larry's land?
It's on the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes, the board did make a decision to move ahead with the
Okay,
right now.
what did we pay for it?
The land is $250,
$250
$250.
for the whole strip?
Yep, and then whatever legal charges to get everything surveyed and everything. But that was the sale price, was $250.
So what did it cost for surveying?
The board said a maximum not more to exceed 250, or not to exceed $5,000. They wanted to give us a wide variety.
Okay.
To just get the,
Why did we buy it?
he wanted to sell it to us because he didn't want to mow. And we have passed mowed the entire strip, and we decided, or the village board made the decision that to own the lakefront. Potential.
How did we buy it?
Yeah, we typically,
For the what?
if we think of the policeman front.
You took $250 out of there to pay for that thing?
Yeah.
It's for,
5,000.
Huh?
Plus up to 5,000.
plus. And we'll wait. We're gonna talk about it again in here, right? No. Okay. So it's only $250 plus 5,000 or whatever. But. And I shouldn't even care. It's not my money. I didn't know him, but I guess I'm fighting for him because he's got nobody else. Ziggy, were you on here when we went through this whole fight?
It's been a long fight. There's been,
Long fight. Deb, you were on here. Mr. Kringle was on here. Mr. Kringle and I both almost had heart attacks going through this. Jeff Odell was on here. I had talked to his attorney because I wanted to know for a fact what this money was for. And this money is for, which I would love to take the money and buy playground, but I'm fighting for what he had in his will, and it was for the Sugar River and the Lake Bellevue. It doesn't say area. The piece of paper Mr. Kringle gave me was not area. It said for the Sugar River and Lake Bellevue. So now we have a new group and the new group is changing everything. I mean, this is, we fought and fought and fought over this.
Changing the what?
The rules of his money, his will, his wish.
I believe the language is the enjoyment of the lake and the river.
Lake and river, you just said it. He said it one night, the money is for the lake and the river.
The enjoyment.
The enjoyment of the lake and river. Those are two different things. Yeah, they're very different things. The enjoyment of the lake and river could very easily be putting a pier on the lake, could be
Then I
any
don't
number of
think we
things.
fought for
I
this.
don't know either. I
It
wasn't
ended
here.
up to be
for that.
water.
I don't have any idea what the previous fight was about, so that would be very difficult for me.
Well, Deb can tell you, Gary can tell you, and Mr. Krinkle can tell you. We went through this. Jeff Odell can tell you. Mr. Fisher's lawyer can tell you. Like I said, I'm just fighting for somebody that has nobody to fight for them.
I think that was our attorney giving us that terminology.
From all the stuff that I've seen and
Right.
read and the guidance that I've gotten from the administrator, I think from our attorneys, has been that it's a wider pathway than literally the water.
Not what it ended up. That's not what we fought for. I just hope nobody else ever gives you money. Because you don't fall what the bequeathment is. I'm done.
Did anybody ever speak to?
Just a second, Jen, I was calling on her next because I think she had her hand raised before. Sorry. Okay, sure. Gotcha.
Well, did anybody on the new board speak to Mr. Fisher's attorneys about this?
I don't believe so. No.
Like there was a phone call.
It also says in your minutes that you can't spend any of it without talking to the
It
attorney.
absolutely does not say that. It absolutely
I
does
will
not
go
say
find the
that.
papers I found.
Please do. And bring them into Gabe. I'm sure
I
he'll be
will.
happy to look them over. Terry, did you have a?
I don't remember, I can't remember any of this stuff other than the fact that we did get some legal opinion as to what it could be spent for. That's all I can remember.
Judy?
Over on this subject. I was here at that board meeting when you guys were talking about this. So what was it that your plans are for that strip of land? Because we'll really enjoy it.
We'll really love it, is what he said.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Well, I said we'll love it because it actually gives us, we actually get, we've got contiguous use of the property along all of 69. I don't have any immediate plans for it, like right now, but $250 for that land is a drop in the bucket. It's absolutely worth spending for that. There are things that we could do down the road. I have no idea when this would happen. You could put a pier off the side of that. You could put a site, like a lookout site there very easily.
I'm gonna go to what just entered my mind about, it's Highway 69.
I'm not talking like next year. I'm talking, could be 10, 20, 30 years down the road. But that land would be much more expensive 10, 20, 30 years down the road. If we could even get access to it. So,
That's the key.
well, correct, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't think the board made the decision that we were gonna be like developing it next week. That wasn't. So, I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm State Representative Jenna Jacobson, and I, under the new maps, Belleville has moved into the district that I represent. So I am here to just learn more about y'all and observe. So thanks for letting me crash your meeting.
You picked a good one, I'm sure. Jenna, did you have another question?
I just know nothing on this, just another comment about something's coming up and I can wait. till-
On the agenda? It's on the agenda, okay. So, anybody else have any non-agenda items that they wanted to talk about?
memo that I gave you, all of the board members here, about the trash. I think we need to put that back on the agenda for the next meeting to consider upgrading the entire village to the 65-gallon cans. I've gone several weeks and my trash only gets half emptied. And it's because of how their trucks are set up and having to put pressure. So
Can we get Pelletary in to talk about options?
Their schedule, it's like.
I talked to Todd and he said he can come.
Any other non-agenda item topics? If not, we will move to consent agenda. All the items on the consent agenda are considered routine, will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as the first item after approval of the consent agenda. And this is for the vote for minutes from June 17th.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Gary, seconded by Mike. Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Carries 0. Next, we are going to skip the audit results. There was an error basically on the report. I think it was posted briefly on Friday as part of the agenda, was taken down shortly thereafter. But they're working through making the edits to that report. So that will be, I don't know about the next meeting, but it'll be in the
They're hoping to get it
for
out.
the next meeting. So in the very near future, we'll have Andrea to talk through the audit results. Next, discuss and consider an annual consultation review with MSA. I think Kevin is here to
Yes.
talk us through that.
So before Kevin starts, so one thing that this is new this year, but I wanted to be able to give the board gets tiers our consultants from time to time, but you don't necessarily get to ask them questions about what services they provide or make comments or all that kind of stuff. They're usually here about a specific item. That's what they discuss and that's what we leave with. I wanted to give the board the opportunity to be able to just ask questions that they may not be able to on a normal day-to-day basis, or you ask me, I don't know, I would go to Kevin anyway. So it gives the opportunity to just for the board to be able to ask general questions about our consultants because they work on behalf of you. I generally have the most face time with them, but they do work with you guys. I mean, we'll just go through and all the list of all of our consultants. And one by one, they will make their way to you. I will now present this.
Is there if I stand over here, just because the PowerPoint's on there, so I'm not sitting in front of it? Okay. As Gabe pulls it up, I've met most of you, but I'm Kevin Lord with MSA, and I'm basically the client liaison for Belleville. I've been at MSA for about 21 years now. I've been in Belleville since probably around 2008, 2009, when my predecessor retired, somewhere in that vicinity anyway. And MSA has been here much longer than I've been at MSA before that as well. So my higher up is Jody Young. He's our regional manager. And he basically is covers kind of the southeastern portion of the state. So it's kind of, if you consider basically Madison to the Fox Valley, Milwaukee, that kind of corner is basically what he is. He had another meeting tonight, so wasn't here. He comes down and has checked in with Gabe a time or two, basically just to kind of same thing, making sure hopefully that he's getting the services he needs, getting responses, all that kind of stuff. So, but in general, I'll be the main contact. As it mentions up there, MSA is growing, but right now we're over 400 employees, 17 offices, in 4 states. And they're obviously looking beyond that and in the future as well. Local offices, obviously the Madison office, which is the one I'm out of and have been since I've been at MSA. We do a lot of funding. We've done a lot for Belleville. Funding in Dane County is a little trickier with, it's obviously a lot more competitive. So we haven't done compared to some of the small communities outside, but there are opportunities. We've helped and you've gotten loans or low interest loans and different things as well through that. MSA has basically, we're a full service engineering firm. We're broke out into what we consider 5 service lines. Public Works is what I'm involved with. So I'm a team leader in our Public Works group, which is basically working with municipalities. There's a lot of overlap in all these as our other service lines are buildings, which includes mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the MEP division. So that would, and we'll go through a slide with it too, but smaller buildings and different things like that that are involved. Our mobility is basically mostly transportation or DOT funded projects. Water is what we consider basically stormwater, potable or non-potable water. So basically the water systems or sanitary sewer systems. And lastly is our land division, which basically kind of groups together survey, site development. We got agricultural services, GIS, environmental, our planning group. So any of that kind of stuff that goes with it as well. So. Next one. This is just a small hierarchy chart. It's really not a hierarchy chart. It's just all the different divisions and basically some of the context. Some of you have seen some of these people down here, and obviously there's well beyond these, but all these are basically out of Madison in general that lead certain divisions as far as, you know, survey or our transportation group. So when I get questions sometimes about a crossing on State Highway 69, I take those to Brian Hubricks, who knows a lot more about the DOT rules than I do myself necessarily. So they're dealing with those on a daily basis and everything. So, but I'm basically the point of contact so that in general, Gabe just has to come to me, and then internally I can utilize our resources to get the answers. So that's basically what this is kind of showing. So we try to do a monthly report with our invoices. I will say that's been a little bit more of a struggle, but I think I've got it a little bit better with Ian now. We switched a project management software over the last year, and it's just it's been harder on us. So we're still learning it, and it's what we're trying to get there. So next slide. This basically just is kind of an overview of all of our services. Some of these services, we're not going to go through every bullet point on these slides. But obviously, if someone's got a question, obviously feel free to raise your hand. We don't have to wait till the end, or you can throw out. In general, I highlighted a couple of items that we do a lot of. Obviously, main one is kind of the last one where it's basically general municipal engineering consultant services. So basically, I'm just here as a resource. Help Gabe get the answers to certain questions, you know, quickly and timely as you guys need it for developments or for any kind of construction work or different things that are going on. We prepare a lot of engineering design and document preparation. So you guys do street and utility work for aging infrastructure projects. We put together the plans for those, get the permits out, basically do a lot of that. And then with that is the construction management and inspection services. So oversight on the construction to make sure the contractor puts things in per plan. The village does have a construction standards online. So those are what contractors and developers are supposed to be following as well. And those need to be updated from time to time. It's been a little while since we probably updated them as times change and different things as well. But so we basically monitor all that so that when the village takes those utilities over, they last the time that they're hoping to. We do a lot of private development plan review. So when Quick Trip came in, you know, they submit a plan, and basically we just try to make sure that, or notify the village if there's some ordinances or zoning that they don't meet. And then the village can make a decision, or we can recommend if they got to do additional stormwater or different items like that. Obviously, we've done a couple environmental studies for properties that the village was going to acquire at different times. Basically, that's just trying to verify if there's any asbestos in the buildings, if you're going to acquire a building, or it was an old gas station site, or things that you may have to be remediated or something down the road. So kind of looking for those type items. Been working a lot more recently with Gabe and them on the capital improvement planning process. So obviously with that newer process, trying to help village look forward for projects and everything as well. Next one. This is basically just our, in general, kind of breaking some of those down. So this is generally engineering, like I mentioned, street and utility design, helping with the capital improvement planning. We do park space improvements. We do airport planning, and we do lakefront marina planning, all this. So some of these things we obviously haven't, and there's not a need to necessarily do in Belleville, but we do have the resources for all this stuff. Bridge design, we have helped out with a few of those here. Whether it's roadway bridges or just half bridges or different things like that. So, and then we have done some traffic planning and some real estate acquisition and different things around here as well. Next is construction engineering. As I mentioned, we do a lot of this. Some of these are just kind of pictures from the west side developments. But in general, it's basically kind of monitoring the construction. We basically take notes down so that we can come up with record drawings that the village can then have afterwards that basically would help Public Works in the future identify where laterals would be, make sure things are built to plan. At the end of the year, we also basically come up with spreadsheets that tally everything up that I guess, really work with Ian on, but basically when the village has their audit, it's for new infrastructure that's done throughout the year. So the village has a duty to report all this stuff throughout so we come up with that, whether it's for a village project or a developer project. All those items that have been retired or utilities have been retired and new stuff throughout. So, but we review the shop drawings, which are basically when they are going to put in manholes, we make sure that they're built correctly and meet the specs and different things like that. And then when needed, pay request as well for the quantities the contractors get as well. So just some of the items that we take care of there, because you don't see a lot of this stuff. Obviously, you kind of see the final road. You don't see all the utilities that are buried a lot of the time as well. So next one is the utility design. Mostly this is basically working with your wells, the water tower, lift stations and treatment plants, and then all the infrastructure that attaches all those things to make it all work. So we've done water system studies, kind of planning for future development and what limitations your current facilities have. And then obviously same thing with the GASBs at the end of the year for the utilities. Right now, we're helping out as the operator in charge at the treatment plant until a full-time DPW gets enough credentials to operate that. So helping out there where we need to. Following, getting up to the DNR requirements, any of the documents that have to be submitted, things like that. So that's what basically a lot of the utility design stuff is for. Next is the traffic design study. Basically, this is a lot of the working with the DOT. The picture on here is actually the Olson Drive intersection. We were asked to actually design that since we have a reputation with DOT. We kind of know what hurdles they got to jump through to make things work through there. So we did the design on that portion of things. But as I mentioned before, we've been working with DOT on some other projects that we've done utilities, and we've gotten RRFBs, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons for a couple pedestrian crossings on 69 as well. Bridge design, we've, like I said, done a couple trail bridges. We just did some modifications on Remy Road out there 2 years ago, I believe now, when that was completed. So, and we do streetscaping and street lighting as needed as well. Next. So surveying and asset management, basically kind of all things GIS and survey related, basically. So, whether it's construction staking, that's more for probably basically if we were doing we don't do the construction staking for a developer's project, like say the west side. We do the construction staking for a village project if we were doing street and utility reconstruction around here. But, looking at doing the survey that we just talked about for the property here, if the village is going to acquire something, if we're asked to do. One item that we had done in the past is we did help some people on the southeast side get out of the floodplain. There was some survey related to all that. When FEMA went through and updated their mapping, that was one area. Obviously not everyone is out, but we got quite a few of them out of the floodplain at that time as well. So, and then just keeping the GIS up to date as well with the utility projects so that all that stuff is hopefully available for the guys when they need it in the field as well. Do architectural engineering. As I mentioned, we don't do that much of big scale residential development architecture stuff. A lot of the stuff that we do architecture wise is pretty much municipality based. So we've done some like village halls or town halls, some well sites, fire stations, that kind of stuff. We don't, like I said, get into the big scale residential type work. I'm sure we probably can if you get, but we usually don't work with developers, at least around here, that do those kind of things. And that also encompasses our MEP, who are mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Obviously, they get involved with a lot of that. A couple projects here is recently we did the well house number 3. We did that one. And then the community park shelter with the restrooms there. That was a couple projects that we did here for the village as well. So planning and urban design. That is more, you have been recently kind of working with the planners on the comprehensive plan and the park and rec plan. So kind of visioning for long-term items that the village is looking for as to how they're going to grow. And required in needing some of those for funding requirements as well. So but completing those studies, looking at economic development and different things like that. So we do assist with those as well. And I think the last slide I've got up here is more environmental services. So as I mentioned, we've done a couple phase one studies for a couple buildings. Usually the environmental technically also includes like the trading project you're doing with the, for the treatment plant right now. It also kind of overlaps obviously into the water, safe water and everything like that as well. But we've done brownfield site developments, have been involved with all those type of items as well. So like I said, that was kind of a quick synopsis of what a lot of the things MSA has done. I just tried to kind of, I know a lot of you saw this. I think I did it in December, maybe when we did our one, but I know there's a couple new people as well. So is the plan to do these yearly? That's what you're, okay. So a lot of our services, like I said, those are a lot of the main ones that we do on a daily basis, but I've also helped kind of on a daily basis, shouldn't say daily basis, when Gabe needs me, it could be very random idea or items as well. So, but we also, MSA also does zoning items, but you guys have general engineering for that. So we don't get into that. I mean, MSA does have those services as well. But I work kind of hand in hand with Corey there on doing some of these site reviews and different things like that. So that's kind of a general overview, a quick general overview of it. So I guess if there's any questions or there's questions afterwards, obviously you can follow up with Gabe, but happy to respond or anything as well. So.
Any questions for Kevin at all? Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
You made a comment about you're in on the developing. Were you in the west side developing?
We did not do the engineering for it. Is that what you mean?
I don't know. I thought you said something about you do some kind of develop.
We do developing, but we don't work with developers in a community we represent because it kind of
Okay. All right.
doesn't work very well.
Okay.
Ask your question about DOT that you asked me. Yeah, survey account.
I thought we were gonna get to that.
Not tonight on Thursday. Kevin is here to ask.
They don't know about it.
Ask the first question.
Well, if it isn't gonna go away, we'll ask it, but partially was explained to me about why I wondered why the surveyors had come into town and set up for the long haul, what they were doing here so long. And City of Belleville would have to borrow a lot more money to pay them, but then I was told that it's covered by the federal and state government.
I think if this is what we talked about recently, was this a survey of kind of down through here? So DOT has got a project that's going on through 69 that's planned right now for construction in 2030. So DOT has hired a different consultant to do the survey and design of that. So we'll get involved from the village aspect of reviewing utilities, but as far as who it was or what they were under contract for and everything like that, I don't know. As far as how long they did or anything. And it sounds like they kind of went up and down some side streets and stuff, but whatever their scope was for, I'm assuming it was for that project. I don't 100% know.
It's just kind of weird. It's not all going to be March in 2030.
Right.
They'll do updates for utilities because obviously utilities will change between now and then. So they will, but they need to get started for. A lot of it comes down to land acquisition. So more than likely, there's going to be easements needed because their main priorities when they redo these is making ADA accessible ramps. And usually that cuts back on the corners a little bit. So they may end up taking temporary easements across and to follow the process for that takes a lot of time. And there's a lot of reports that have to be done to follow the DOT process. So it just takes time.
What about this question? Paying for all of it. What part of this project is paid by the taxpayers?
So that project, to my knowledge, and Gabe can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that project is basically The main road and ramps and everything is all paid by the state. The only thing that the village would be paying for would be like the outside parking lanes if they wanted to be repaved with the main road, which the plan is to do that. And then any utility work that the village would like to do as well. If we want to replace the water and sewer, since they're going through there, the village would be on the hook for that as well. But the main roadway, any storm sewer that they're doing, any ADA upgrades or ramps or sidewalk curb, that kind of stuff is all state, part of the state project that I'm aware of. And then I think we mentioned to him, depending on how the Safe Routes to School study goes, if there is possibly like a couple crossings or something. I'm not sure if the village will have to share in any of that or but we did mention that it's something they would consider down the road.
Things that have nothing to do with the highway. For instance, the old railroad depot over here. As I understand, that was one of the things that was surveyed. And maybe that was in a previous job.
That one, I don't know anything about, like why it would be surveyed recently unless it's, I don't know what the scope of their project is, so I can't really say for sure on that.
Anybody want to comment on that?
I don't know of anything that we did relative to Broadwing. Wouldn't be doing anything with surveying, but I don't have.
House got painted blue and all that.
Yeah, I
stuff.
don't know. I wonder
They were doing all that.
There wasn't any action that this body took relative to requesting or doing anything that was survey related that I'm aware of. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, next is President's Report. I don't have a lot. I did want to say thank you to Public Works for getting the pier back in at the lake. I saw that last weekend and people already using it very frequently, so that's great to see. So thanks to everybody for that. I know that the farmers market, although it's not happening tomorrow night, farmers market I think has been quite successful and regularly attended. Music in the park is still going on. So.
I'm gonna make a comment on the pier that was put in, and I agree with you. It's been in there. It's gotten a lot of activity.
Is this part of the president's report, Judy?
Yeah. So the question is you're catching fish this big. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and I don't know if, I know there's lots of carp in there, but at one time we talked about adding species of fish to the lake. So I thought maybe we could do that.
We did it. I took them out.
Oh, an 18. That's all I'm gonna get.
That's all I have for my president's report. So Gabe, I'll go over to you for.
Brush pickup was postponed till Wednesday. That way staff can do mowing before July. And kind of get all that stuff done, especially if it's rains like the forecast is looking to tomorrow. It's kind of a reorganization of duties, and we did post out on Facebook and it has been shared. So residents are aware of that. And then we still have one vacant position in Public Works. One of our candidates went back to New Glarus as they are vacant of Public Works Director position. They made them an offer to stay, position, but to stay. So we still have one starting next week. So we still have one vacant position. And that is all I have.
Service in anything? Maren,
Nothing tonight.
Jim? Nothing? Come on.
Boring on purpose.
That's all right. That's all right. So. Cool. Next is discuss and consider mural easement agreement.
So this is from the Arts and Culture Committee. We decided to have we'll simplify an easement agreement. The other one was 4 pages long, kind of complicated, especially if you don't necessarily know English. English is not your native language. This kind of, even for me, it was like this too much. So I wanted to narrow it down, narrow the scope down, include all the requirements in it, but just kind of make it a little bit easier to understand. So that is what this does. The one comment that the AMLAT would like us to amend in here is the property owner shall have it is up for 10 years. And at that point, we relook at what that looks like. AMLab would like that, the first review to be after 5 years.
What paragraph is that in?
The initial,
Third paragraph after the.
the initial term of the easement shall run from the effective date until 10 years after the property owner agree. We did that, obviously, like we're using donations, and the thought for the reason for 10 years was that way we ensure that it's up for a good quality amount of time. AMLab would like a review period at 5. They got mixed reviews, but it would need to be approved by you guys anyway, so that's why I'm bringing it to you. You want to just put it to 5 for the first review, or
What's his position? Why 5 years versus 10?
in case they don't want it anymore?
You're not gonna sign the agreement unless it's 5 years?
Not necessarily, but they do want a decision if you would be willing to put it down to 5. I told them I would ask. There was no, in the scope of the project, it had to be up. This was the arts and cultures wanting it up for 10 years.
Read anything in the donation stuff that talked about length of time?
I think it was, the hope was 10 years
I
again.
understand that, but on the website or anything, I don't. Is there anything that referenced that time frame at all? It would have been important to do at the beginning of the process, but it's not. Yeah, or anyone.
I think it was mainly, we would like to put a mural up there, but it wasn't a designated time from what I remember. So, if you guys want to stick with 10, I'm okay with that too. I think it just, they asked me to ask.
Do you have any approximation on what the mural would cost or is will cost?
I think 15, I think is what they raised, so I think that's what the budget is for it.
So 15 grand? So if we decrease it to 5, that's $3,000 a year compared to 1,500 a year?
Clarification here, did we receive 15? How much do we have in donations?
About 15.
Check for 7,000 of funds collected in October to Madison Community Foundation. I've got another over $8,000 in that EDC account that was earmarked for it.
Budget, that's a budget.
We had nothing budget. All this was raised.
Did you just say that?
So we have about 16.
So there was 7,000 that I sent. I was directed by Megan to send as a community foundation last October, early November. So they've got 7,000, and the other 8,000 and change is sitting in the EDC account earmarked for that project.
Where'd the 8,000 come from?
It's all donations.
Everything is donated.
So why did we give an outside vendor half of the money?
They made that decision before we got here.
So they
Okay.
It's not a vendor, it's an entity to hold the assets. They did it to keep it separate so that there wasn't any concern about somebody internally taking money or the optics of that, basically, as I understood it. Terry?
Do you have any information as to what the lifespan of, like being proposed would be?
Kind of needed to be updated quite frequently, probably 2 or 3 times for the life of it, which the village is on the hook for. So it's our bureau, and that's where this is an easement agreement that the owner cannot do anything to that wall. If the wall falls down, they have to return it to its current state for 10 years. And I don't know if they have plans to expand in 5 years, and that's why they want it to 5. I don't know, but they wanted the option to review it at 5.
Are we gonna need artists to put the paint replace the paint?
So that's where the Arts and Culture Committee is probably gonna have to make sure they don't spend all their money to just do the first project. They're gonna have to keep funds in there to
Okay,
keep
okay.
maintaining it, repair work, or if somebody vandalizes it or something like that. It's on the village's job to maintain the mural as it was written by.
So do we have an artist that's gonna do it?
We have released RFPs, but we didn't want to select an artist until we had it locked down that this was. This is the only thing that's keeping,
Paying an artist to do this, or are we just providing the paint?
we will be paying them from the commission,
How much?
depending on how much, like, none of that's been decided yet. It's all in the RFP process. That's what the
So just
RFP,
like this extra piece of land, we have obligation, we have additional operating expenses we're gonna have to use to maintain it.
the donations will have to maintain it, yes. Villages,
Well, if somebody, I'm just saying, if it costs 8 or 10 grand to get somebody out here for the paint and their efforts, and there's 5 grand in there, and it's 6,000-7,000, and I'm just saying this is gonna be an ongoing obligation, it's like parks or anything else.
Not just maintenance, but if there were something like vandalism or force majeure or whatever, our insurance would likely cover it because it'd be public art.
I just want direction from you guys. Do you want to keep it at 10? Do you want to keep it at 5?
I'd prefer to keep it at 10, even kind of what Terry just described. Like, I'd prefer to do that, but I also, like, I don't know if it's a deal breaker for them, right? I think if there's more pushback on that, I think we need to revisit.
The middle at 7?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm sensitive to the fact that I think I'm sensitive to two things. One is we've got people that have donated to this, and I think generally they were hoping that the mayor was gonna stay up for, I don't know, that 10 years I think has been floated around, but I don't know how much that impact had on people that were donating. But I think I'm sensitive to that, but I also, like, we obviously need the wall to put the paint on, so like. And I want to be clear about this, like, I'm not personally advocating for the mural, that this was a decision that was made before many of us got here, so we don't really have a choice in this. Like, we're gonna try to give the money back to people that donated for this cause. It's one way or the other, we have to navigate what is in front of us, I think, so. Which, good, bad, and different, that's just the reality, so. Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, I could probably be persuaded to 7. I think if they're asking, I'd still probably start with 10, but you know. That's my personal take, but I don't. If others have other ideas, I'm all ears.
I go along with 10.
Was there a verbal agreement prior to with this property owner that 10 was it? He decided 5, is it change or?
No, it was kind of, there was never any conversation on that. I think it was all EDC prior to us saying this is what we want. Drafted up, they were very clear that this was all
So 10
us.
years set up.
This was all us telling him. There is a verbal agreement that he wants it on the building, but I think there was that language barrier. They live in China, they're going through their general manager, and there's someone who goes to UW or works for UW. And so there is that translation barrier that we are forced to deal with, but it's kind of a, there really isn't a right way. I don't really have a formal recommendation. 5 years gets it signed and we're done with. 10 years is, it keeps it up longer and it makes sure that public funds are well used. So it's kind of.
Well, I'll make a motion that we recommend to start with the negotiation at 10. If you need to, and give the authorization to move to 7 or even to 5 if it's necessary.
Second.
Mhm.
The discussion on that. I'm just thinking that seems reasonable. I don't want to keep coming back here to do it. I don't know what else we really have a choice. It's not our wall. Fine with me. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? That carries. Okay, next. New business, discuss and consider an urban forestry special charge.
No.
Ian, it's like you.
So with urban forestry and the fire protection special charge that comes right after this, it's both the same kind of deal where by statute, we're allowed to charge for some specific services. Urban forestry and fire protection being two of those. So I've been going through since my time here, trying to find ways where we increase revenues. And this is really the last two shots to make any single large meaningful difference in the general fund. So with urban forestry, just so I don't have to explain it twice, if you don't mind, with urban forestry, we are able to institute a special charge that would be placed on the tax bills that would recover our entire budget for our urban forestry program. So in working that out with Jim, we came to about, what was it, $66,893-ish of what we actually spend for our urban forestry program, at least this year. So we would be able to, in the future, put that charge on the tax bill using the formula that I've come up with that Rick has reviewed and given his opinion on. So that would be collected separately with the tax bills. Because it'd be collected separately with the tax bills, that 66,000 and change number, which would vary each year depending on what the board approved, would be available for use in the general fund budget each year for budget time. With the fire protection service specialty, the same is true with the exception of a one-time negative levy adjustment equaling the amount that the village spent for fire service in 2013, the year that the law was enacted. Just let me pull it up. I think that's somewhere is around the $40,000 mark. So what would happen here is that we would reduce our levy. If we instituted this charge, we would reduce our levy by $44,007, which would leave the gap of $50,086, again, available for use in the general fund, because the entirety of what we would pay the fire district or our fire service would be charged separately on the tax bill. I guess I provided all of the information I could. If the board decided they wanted to move forward with it, everything is set. In both cases, the money would be charged separately as a separate line item on the tax bill. And the monies collected would go into their own separate accounts. So it would mean the creation, not literal bank accounts, but segregated for accounting purposes. So we would have an urban forestry special revenue fund and a fire service special revenue fund. EMS cannot be charged in this fashion. So that's why it's only fire. The formulas for the charges themselves are a little different. So when looking at urban forestry, there is only one other municipality in the state that charges for urban forestry on the special or on the tax bill, and that's the city of Madison. And how they do it is a little different than how we have it here, simply because we don't have the administrative capacity to review it annually and do it the way that they do based on linear street frontage, the use of the property, and the acreage. So what we've just done here is something that's manageable with the annual assessment rolls, where we take the total acreage in the village, developed and undeveloped is the way it's split out. And we take the so the program expenditures, the total minus any other income. So any grants or donations or anything like that would be taken off the total. Whatever's left over would be the budgetary need, which would actually be used in the calculation. So the budgetary need divided by the total number of taxable acres equals, one urban forestry unit. Kind of similar to what we use when we do stormwater, our stormwater utility charge. The total undeveloped acreage divided by that one base unit times 25%, so it only pays 25% of the one base unit, is what each undeveloped acre or fraction thereof would be charged. Once that's taken out of the equation, the total budgetary need is updated. That total budgetary need divided into the total number of developed acres gives us what the developed acre charge would be. And that's split out accordingly per acre or fraction thereof. And then I did include the spreadsheets that show the breakout of the gem, the per acre fee and how that's calculated, and then an assessor list mocked up to show exactly what each property would be charged with this formula. And for fire service, I put everything together very similarly.
How much oil did you put in them? Confused. What?
That's background.
I'm confused as to how does fire service connect with urban forestry?
It doesn't. They're completely different. It's just under the same statutory reference, we're able to do special charges for each one of those services.
So the reason we're able to do fire and not EMS is when EMS comes, they're coming for the person. They're coming to protect you when EMS comes to a location. When fire comes, they're coming to protect the property. They're coming to protect the house and the neighbor's houses from burning down. Obviously, they come in and protect the individual too, but their main goal is property protection. That's why it can be put on the property tax. EMS code.
It's a separate agenda item. That's the next.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to
Talking us through the model.
Okay.
Urban forestry is the first one, and the next agenda item is the.
November 27th, we agreed to a contract with urban forestry with Corey, is his name?
Cody.
$115 an hour, roughly 120 hours a year, roughly $14,000 covers services. That was in November. So here we are, 7 months later, and we're talking about this doesn't have really much to do with urban forestry other than it's a vehicle to charge people money so that we can increase revenues. That's what it's for, right?
Yeah.
Some of that. So Cody is a part of the budget that's spelled out here. So if we're taking a look at the actual services that have to do with urban forestry, the village forester, Cody, is definitely one of those. And his individual pay is between 14,000, 15,000 is what his contract is. But then there's contracted tree services as well. They're the ones who remove trees, do the topping, do any kind of variable, whatever they got to do with the trees that we have. There's the machine equipment maintenance we have for the chipper, the trucks. There's the leaf back. There's several different things that we included in here and actually calculated out by amount of time it takes for Public Works to do it, the average cost of the Public Works labor, the average man hours, the average hours for the machinery, potential gasoline usage. This is as close as we could get to what an individual forestry budget would look like if you take in leaf collection, brush pickup, as well as the forester and the tree services that we use, and plantings.
So how much did we budget?
Well, this is included right now in the parks budget. So this is not any new money. This is money that we already have budgeted in the parks budget. Parks budget by itself is actually more than the number I have here. I only used the items that had forestry related items, but the parks budget's in excess of 160,000. So 66, almost $67,000 of the current parks budget is what we actually spend in urban forestry. And so if we pull out what we actually spend for our urban forestry program, it equals out the less the grant money we can expect to receive. It equals out the 61, almost $62,000. That would be in this mock using this year's budget would be the charge that I use in the calculations and everything. So it's not increasing anything that we currently do. It's just separating out how we charge for our current services. Now, the separation of how we charge, putting it separately on the tax bill, that does allow for an extra amount equal to the amount we charge in the general fund. So if you guys decide that, if you guys decide you want to use a special charge, that's one conversation. Next conversation is how much you want to use the charge. You can use up to the actual budgeted amount. So if we actually budget $65,000 for forestry each year, but the board decides at budget time when we're doing the special charges that they only want to charge 50,000, then 50,000 is put in the special charge. The 15,000 is used from the tax levy, and anything that remains would be left open to the general fund to utilize.
No debt,
For anything, really.
meaning we have to borrow it,
No,
thing up and over there, right?
no, there's no borrowing for this, no.
Okay.
So that money would be available, there's no borrowing, so the money that you charge to this special charge in the tax bill, that's 60 whatever $1,000, you can use it anywhere. You can use it in PD, you can use it elsewhere in public works, you can use it.
Or you don't.
Or you don't, or you can put it towards debt service, which
What's the effect?
that is in the mock-up. So like I said, with the 3 spreadsheets that I provided, there's the budget, there's the Excel version of the calculation. And then there's literally the list of every single property in the village. And I use the calculation on each individual property to suss out exactly what it would mean with that dollar amount for each property. I don't know if I can find your specific property in here.
It's like one in general, what's
78 Heritage Lane would be, it's a condo, so it's $15.34 an annual.
Mine
Average
is
is-
$46.49
$46.49.
forestry.
But they're kind of all over the place. I mean, there's some
It's a lot higher.
undeveloped acreage that's down $2-3 a year, and then there's some that are up over $1,500 commercial properties. So it really depends on the property because the calculations takes into account whether or not that property is developed and how many acres or how much it has acreage.
Connie, did you have a question?
So if I'm hearing you right, you're gonna charge me for forestry, but that money's gonna be sent somewhere else. Can
No,
be
the
spent
money-
anywhere? You just said it could be spent anywhere.
So the money that we collect through the special revenue would go directly to urban forestry. But what we're doing, if the board chooses to do this, they are funding it by a different way. What we had, the way we had funded in the past can now be used for whatever the board wants to do with. So like, we take, right now, all of our forestry is paid out of the general fund. Let's just say $60,000 is paid out of the general fund. Now, if they did this, 60,000 would be paid out of the special account. That other 60,000 that they use, they could spend it on something else, or they could lower the levy by 60,000. They don't have to spend that much. It just gives them $60,000 more money to be able to use if something does to happen. It's to give the board more flexibility and having more money to be able to either use, or if they choose not to use it, they don't have to. It just gives them the option to have an extra, if they did both, $100,000 to be able to do that.
Clarification. If the plan is to lower the levy, there's no point in doing this. So this is something we'd only want to do. It's only feasible if we intend to use the general fund money that this would free up somewhere else. If not, then there's no point. It just adds more administrative work just to put in a different line item on the tax bill.
Judy?
I'm in the attorney's notes here.
Mhm.
Underlined, I'm gonna read it to you. The village would need to design a special charge structure that ensures the amount of revenue collected does not exceed the village costs of maintaining village trees. In other words, the fee cannot generate general purpose revenue, but may only be used to reimburse the village's actual documentable costs. Okay, so that means if you're gonna charge the taxpayers to obtain $66,000.
$893.09.
Right, and there isn't that is the amount, that amount is higher than the actual cost. You can't use it for anything else.
We're confusing things here. So the money that's collected through a special charge, like let's say you pay your tax bill in parts and you write out a separate check for this. That is segregated for that specific. You can only use it for urban forestry. That charge. The general tax levy for the general fund is where that money is, that money doesn't touch it anymore. So
in other words,
you're creating a void in the general fund
so we're gonna.
by taking that one out.
Yeah, we're levying, I gotta get this straight in my head. So if we levied, and last year we levied, what, $100,000 for forestry?
No, it's the same amount for forestry specific, but it's in the parks
Correct.
budget.
But, all right, but out of the parks budget dollars, how much has been paid for urban forestry?
And so Jim and I pulled that out, and that's the number that I based all the mock-ups on would be the actual charge would be for this year for all the properties. So it's at 61,000 and change number.
Okay, so in other words, at 61,000, the taxpayers still will be levied for that. But that money can be used anywhere else in any other part of the budget. We aren't reducing it like I was hoping we would. And the special charges that we pay with our one-time check would cover the fee or the amount needed to cover the actual bills of what urban forestry.
Yes, that sounds correct.
Okay. So we're not reducing our tax levy. What we're doing is we're adding an additional charge to the taxpayers. Plus we get levied.
It's not plus, it's the same level as it was before potentially.
Yeah, so you're still correct, but so what we're talking about here tonight is their ability to charge up to that amount. So like I said before, they can do sliding scale and then recoup any of that money in the general fund. So if they could charge up to 61,000 and change for urban forestry, they could charge up that whole amount. If they decide that they don't want to do that, they could charge 20,000 and keep the rest in the levy, and so you'd only have 20,000 in the general fund to move around. Does that make sense at all?
What I'm trying to get at, because this is the way my mind works, is if the taxpayers are levied the 20,000 or however much.
They're gonna pay more.
Maxine, thank you. In the end, we're paying more dollars than what we're getting levied for, but we're writing you an extra check.
It literally have to be an extra check, but yes, it's an increase.
Mhm. That's what I'm driving at.
Well, I guess I want to know. Are we gonna raise sewer rates this year for our taxpayers?
This year, no.
What about next year?
No idea. It kind of hinges on what we're doing. Well, it hinges on one, if anything pops up. But then it kind of hinges on what we're doing with the North Side project. So whatever ends up happening there will be the big dictator of whether or not we have an increase. I couldn't even speculate right now if there's gonna.
We got
sizable.
Terry coming back in to talk to us about stuff. That could possibly be another increase to the taxpayers.
And we don't need that.
And then we also got the fire protection to talk about yet. With an increase there, how much can we keep taxing our taxpayers?
Well, what services,
Hallelujah, Deb.
what services would you like to give up? That's the predicament that we're in. And we're getting close to, like, we're in the beginning of budget time, right? So we're getting to the point where when we get push comes to shove and we start closing all these doors of revenue options, like service, we don't have other options to generate revenue.
It's like I started out, these are the final two large
It's too much.
ability for us to get revenue. I do have one more with general upstate to the fee schedule, but that's not going to be any more than maintenance. It's not going to make that big of a difference. These are the last real two options that I or Brian from Ellers or Rick can think of that would be new revenue sources at this time. So that's why they're being presented. After this conversation, though, I mean, we've kind of hit the limit of revenue we can bring in. So if you can't bring in revenue and you don't have enough money, there's only one way to go.
Then cut services.
So, I mean, if some of you remember last year's audit, he had a significant general fund deficit. And it has improved over the last year, but it's still woefully underfunded for where it's supposed to be. And the sad reality is, like Ian's saying, there are very few options for us to correct the situation. And these two are, like he said, most significant. I don't like raising taxes or charging either. But we need to get into a better situation. And what is the option to drop this charge at some point in the future if we choose?
Like I said, it could, once you.
That'll never happen.
Maxine, can you please go on mute? Because we can hear everything you're saying.
Well, I never get called on. I've had my hand up for over a half an hour.
I'll get you next.
Sorry. Thank you.
So as I said, if the board would want to move forward with this, all they're doing is setting the groundwork to be able to charge this. You wouldn't be actually setting a charge until we get well into budget time. This fall, probably November. This is just setting the framework, doing the resolution, having me set up the accounts and getting everything started and get ready. The amount that's actually charged for these special charges is in arrears. So we're only able to charge what we actually spent the previous year. And so that can be decided at any time. The actual amount of the charge does not have to be maxed out at the total program cost, as I was trying to say before. It can be a percentage of or a dollar amount of those total charges. It can be the entire thing. It could be nothing at all. But this is just allowing for the charge. Once again, if it's going to be nothing at all, there's kind of no point. But it can be anywhere on that rainbow. So it does not automatically have to be the entire program cost. It just opens it up so it could be the entire program cost.
And we set that every year at budget time. And if we so choose, we could set it to zero, correct?
Yeah, you could. As I put in my memos on the two, very similar in budget planning wise to the refuse and recycling budget, where you guys pass a separate resolution for the special charge every year. Right at the same time, you pass a resolution adopting the budget. It'd be the same process for this.
So I'm gonna go to Maxine next. So.
Okay, well, first of all, we're not Madison. And the taxpayers here in Belleville are maxed out. Between their water bills, sewer bills, and their taxes, people don't have the money to pay another charge. And I don't know, it's fine for people that are working and still have two incomes coming in, but for retired people or single parents or somebody that doesn't get very much money, I don't know where you expect us to do. Rob a bank to pay this? It's ridiculous. I like trees. I love trees, but I think there's a better way of going about it than to put another charge on the tax bill.
What's the other way, Maxine? What's the other way that you think?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe that has to take a back. I mean, right now we take money out of the general fund to do this. And I realize that technically that still comes from the taxpayers, but to additionally raise their taxes to have additional monies, it's wrong at this time. I'm sorry. I went up and down and asked a lot of neighbors, a lot of people in Belleville, and I said, are you in favor of having this? And everyone except one said, absolutely not. I'm having a hard time paying my taxes now. So I'm sorry, but I would say this is not right. But I will think on it and see if there's another way that I can come up with as a suggestion, not now.
Jenna?
Thanks. The only, I mean, I have many concerns too, but part of the thing with forestry that's really bothering me is that we planted new trees in our new west subdivision, never watered them. I don't know how much we paid for all those trees, but every single one of them died. Now, we have at least a dozen big trees laying back here, don't we? Unless they got planted today. And how much did we spend for those? I don't know. I can't see it in any of the stuff that we're looking through for expenditures. But they're big trees. They're not cheap. And they've been laying back behind Public Works for how long now? Because we're too busy. Come on, that's where I object to spending this money. If we're gonna buy trees, then plant them.
And water them.
And then, yes, we have to maintain them, which again, goes with the whole thing with Public Works. We have to maintain, and you know as well as I, we don't maintain in this village. You can get mad at me, but you know it's true.
Judy?
I'm gonna add something to Jenna's. The last 4 years, we bought trees and never watered them. The last group, Mike's subdivision, Arbor Circle has them. And then, of course, the whole west side. We replanted trees twice and they never got watered. They all died. We went out, I think the last time, not the time, the trees that are sitting back there, was $3,500. They planted all those trees, but they didn't water them and they all died. So on this little Ian memo, it says, my glasses on, that a creative solution, the staff have been working to investigate creative solutions to generating revenue and reducing costs for maintaining services. I have yet to hear any cost reductions.
I wanted to get rid of the municipal court.
You want to do what?
That was one of the first things I brought was deleting a department.
You want to get rid of it?
The court.
Oh, the court.
The first thing I brought up was getting rid of the municipal court. We talked about bringing building inspection services back inside. I can't tell you how many conversations we've had about how we can cut costs around here. I really cannot tell you. Like everything, bugging Ellers to see if there's any way we can refinance anything. I mean, it's just, the list is endless. Like Kevin has been in some of those conversations too, on how we can try to reduce our costs on literally anything. Working on it.
Well, the other thing that I find really interesting is I saw many of the homeowners raking their leaves, filling up their F-150 packets and hauling the leaves over to the dump themselves because their leaves were never getting picked up. The fellow on Green Street that lives in a little gray house before you get up your driveway, raked his leaves 3 times. Public Works ran around with the vacuum and never vacuumed them up. He ended up putting it in his trash can, took his trash can down to the dump and did it himself. We have to, and these people get levied, they pay taxes. And we're paying for these services. And I'm going, okay, I buy it. If we were truly getting the services, I filled up 2 recyclable bins because I cleaned up leaves on Main Street, which like to gather on Main Street, and on Green Street. Nobody came to pick up my leaves. So I put them back into the recycling bin and I took them out to Dick Miller's house. Because Dick uses those as compost.
So I guess in a bit of a response to you, Judy, as we know, we've had a lot of public works staffing issues over the last 2 years, for sure. And a lot of it has been, also management of that. They've been short-staffed. And part of the problem with getting people there is we don't have the money to pay wages competitive enough to hire anybody. So we've been in this situation for a long time. The level of service you're getting is more a direct input of that staffing problem than it is of where the money's coming from. So that's my take on it.
And I know that, Mike. I definitely know that, but I also know we don't have the numbers. And the numbers aren't increasing rapidly enough. Now, when I looked at this, Mike, I noticed that the businesses in town pay more money for forestry than the taxpayers. And that's because they have a bigger piece of property. The more business we can get into the community, it reduces the taxpayer resident first. And what do we have here? Other than Quick Trip that came out here, we don't have a lot of business. We're getting 2 buildings.
So I want to try to focus on the urban forestry and not
Okay,
talking
well,
about
I'm
the
still-
planning of the whole village and businesses coming into town. So did you have additional comments relative to the urban forestry charge?
I'm telling you, when I looked at it,
And I understand, but you've been going for 10 minutes now. Terry, I'm going to go to you next.
Oh, there's so many things I'd like to say. Number one, doesn't have anything to do with this, but somebody that's sitting in the front row here objected to 2 businesses coming into this town because they then, for whatever the reason may be. One of the big problems is that I have complained about for the last 5 or 10 years is the fact that the state has decreased, although this year they did increase, the amount of revenue that they provided to the municipalities. There's only one other place if you want to keep what services you do have. And when I was still on the board, Gabe and I discussed decreasing services. If you think that you're not getting things done now, think about not having as many people, if we ever get full staffed, as we have or should have. So I'm asking everybody here, write letters to your state representatives and tell them that they are not providing their share of the revenues. We have, I don't know how many millions of dollars of extra revenue that they keep fighting about, but they won't share it. So try that, do that, complain to them a little bit. That's one of the big problems. We are not the only municipalities in this situation. All the municipalities, there was an article in the paper a few weeks ago, are looking for ways to increase the revenue because they can't increase our tax revenue.
Levy limits.
We're either gonna lose service or you're gonna have to figure out some way to increase revenue. And it's very unfortunate that we have to do this as a municipality. And I personally blame our state for a good share of creating this problem. Complain to them. Write a letter to them. Get your neighbors to write letters to them. Because even though they increased it this year, they still have, if you compare dollars to dollars 10 years ago, it's still not what it should be. And I forgot the other things I wanted to say.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah. I'm getting really mad at the people of Belleville. Because you went around, Maxine, and you asked all these people and they're having a bird, where are they? I'm getting so tired of just a little handful of us being here and we all go out and everybody belly aches and nobody comes here. I mean, we got to start having people come here to let you know what we want. And for the trees, I'm upset that, what's his name, chopped down all the trees. It's like, can't you have a tree by a house and trees that weren't watered? I'm sorry, but if I had a tree at my terrace and it was dying, I'd be watering. I blame people out there too. They could have watered them. I know they don't want it on their water bill, but now they're going to get charged a forest fee. So I don't know what's wrong with us. We need to get out and do some stuff. We need to come here, let you know what we want. We need to help them. There's shortage. Those trees should have never died. How can you let all those trees die? Why can't you go out and water them? I mean, I don't understand it. Because that's how I am. I would have went out and watered them. I probably would have bellyached about it that I had my water bill go up. But at least I have a tree. I mean, people, they have to start doing things.
Helping.
Yes.
I agree.
I'm gonna go to Maxine, you had your hand up.
Yes, I agree with you 100%, Connie. And when I did talk to these people, I said, please come to the board meeting and express your views. Well, I had things like, no, I can't do that. I have this to do, or I had millions of excuses. I said, well, I'm representing you, but it really helps for you to come and express your views because the board members don't know what you want otherwise. So I did tell them to come, but obviously I don't see anybody there. Thank you.
They're at meetings all the time.
Thanks, Maxine.
I know. Thank you.
Jenna?
So, well, based on what Terry said, which I totally agree, and I was going to bring that up since we happen to have a state representative here tonight. But I think I can start with you, Jeff. If you do a letter on next door neighbor and the water bill and in the paper saying what we're faced with, and we need to reach out to our representatives, we need to reach out to our governor, and just maybe a sample letter. I don't know, but I agree. If we have to do that, it's not just.
And I don't
Even
disagree.
then, it's not going to help probably, but we can try.
And I don't disagree with any of that. I think
I look at this in two different ways relative to this specific fee, because I want to kind of button this up and vote at some point, but I don't disagree with any of that. We definitely need more funding from the state. That would be great, but that's no guarantee and that changes, right? So that's one of the variables.
I think there's two things that this potentially accomplishes. And I think the important part that Ian, I think, pointed out relative to this gives the board flexibility to be able to charge an urban forestry fee. That doesn't mean that we have to charge 66,000. We could charge 20,000. We could charge 15. We could charge 10. We could charge 66 if we needed to or wanted to do that necessarily. I also understand, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have a lot of options to generate revenue. My biggest fear right now is we're going to get to budget time and we're going to have debt service. We're going to have increased wages because there's inflation for everybody. That's just the reality of where we're at. We've got staff we're going to have to pay. We've got benefits. No idea what health insurance does. Like all of those things go into the whole budget that we've got to cover as a village. And if we don't have other options to generate revenue, there aren't other options other than cutting services, right? We don't have other choices. We can't say, well, Gabe, we really like you. Can you just volunteer for 2 days a week instead of we're just going to pay you 80% of what we pay you now, right? That's not an option. It doesn't work that way, right? We are going to have those expenditures. Now, we can hold off on replacing equipment that's, again, I've only been in this position for a short time, but like that's been happening for years and years and years, right? Like we literally have equipment, that's outdated. Absolutely agree with everybody's sentiments relative to the trees and other stuff. I would echo what Mike said. I know Tom's here tonight. I know Jim's been like given half of his life basically to work for parks. And I know Tom gives his whole life to it because he's a absolutely diligent worker and hard, puts his effort in. I honestly think most of our staff right now, if not all of our staff, is doing very much the same thing and working very hard at trying to make the village a beautiful place to live and reside and enjoy as it relates to all that stuff. But there are just inherently costs to doing that. That's just the reality.
Isn't there supposed to be a public hearing? Stuff. According to the attorney, it says you gotta have a public hearing.
When we go to set the charge, yeah.
Right, okay. Because that wasn't brought up. You'll bring, people in if anyone has concerns.
Sure. Right. And again, I know we haven't even voted that we're moving forward with this. I would advocate for this just because I think we have limited other options. Like the window is narrowing for that. And I can tell you, if we don't start passing some of these things or giving ourselves the opportunity for the flexibility to generate that revenue, the conversation you're going to hear from me from budget time, that goes to everybody on the board, is come with solutions because I really don't want to hear it anymore. That's where it comes. If you're saying we don't have any way to generate more revenue, you're going to have to come with solutions as to how you're going to cut the budget and be able to support it across the board.
I did send you an email about 6-8 weeks ago. Be able to cut 33.
Absolutely, and we're going to address that. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I don't
heard back from you. So
No,
I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I
ignored her.
So to be clear, all we're doing tonight is that we want to explore this. This would not happen. There would not be a charge until.
There's not a charge until one's adopted by resolution.
Yes, right.
This sets up the framework.
It doesn't, and I don't think it was real clear here, but it's not necessarily the full amount. You based everything you put in these two memos based on the full amount that we could do. So my question is, and I know we're on urban forestry, but it kind of applies. So on the fire one, you said, is that a one-time $40,000? So next year.
Yeah, so it's only a one time because it only has to be one time. So there's a one-time levy limit reduction in the amount that we paid for fire service when the law was enacted in 2013. Yep. Everything above and beyond that, which will continue, I'm sure, to go up every year as fire and EMS go up every year. Fire goes up every year. So that would be allowed special charge, and that would be money that's now freed up or not necessary to increase the general fund.
One other thing I was going to add to before I forget it, is this also increases transparency to everybody. This is an opportunity for the board, if we were to charge, I don't want to say the maximum, but you literally, the taxpayers know how much you're paying for the trees and servicing what we do with forestry in the village. I mean, there's a benefit to knowing that's, you know what, this is money that we're spending to keep trees in the parks and, you know, treating the emerald ash borer and all the other stuff that we spend money on relative to to keeping the green space that we've got.
And the same for fire also.
Correct.
It's okay if I make a motion?
Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion to move ahead with the urban forestry special charge planning and with the amount to be set, if there is an amount at a later date during the budget process.
I'll second that. The discussion. This is literally just giving us the structure. We're pursuing to get the structure in place.
So this is a year in arrears, like the garbage, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Aaron, can we do a roll call vote?
Yep. Okay, trustee Bainan,
No.
Campbell,
No.
Casmar,
Yes.
Ford,
No,
Ziegler,
Yes.
Service,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
passes on a 4-3.
People are coming with solutions. Okay, next item, discuss and consider a fire protection special charge.
So I kind of went through the basic stuff with the urban forestry. I said that the main difference between urban forestry and this one is that one-time levy limit reduction. Now with forestry, or excuse me, with the fire special charge, because of that levy reduction, that I would say if we are going to use this charge, we would at minimum need to do better than or charge more than that one-time reduction, so we don't lose that ability to levy. So there would be a minimum associated with this. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, I feel like I kind of rambled.
So the minimum would be that
$44,007. Yeah, that would be the absolute minimum charge that you'd be.
How much did we pay for fire protection last year?
Last year was $94,090. This year is $94,093.
So it's, we're not going to be in that $40,000 range anytime soon. Expect.
What do you mean?
It's not going to go down in cost for us to help contribute to fire service.
Oh, God, no.
Meaning if we were to, we're not going to, if we charge 40,000, we're not covering our full tab for fire service.
Correct. Yeah,
It's fine. I'm just,
we would still have
as an
that
example, like we're not,
$50,086 make up with levy or with the full charge on the tax bill.
Judy.
And still applies just like the urban forestry. We get levied whatever district, which also includes Montrose and Exeter and Brooklyn and the other Oregon, the other little bird. Whatever that board does. So we have, again, another charge on top of the actual levy.
Well, see, with this one, it's a little different, like I was just saying. So this one, we would have to reduce our levy. So reduce the total amount of taxes that we collect by the amount that we were charged in 2013 at $44,007. So the levy is being reduced by that amount. That amount would show up as a special charge regardless. Now, whether or not they choose to use $50,086 from the tax levy or increase the special charge to the full amount of the fire service charge, that's up to the board. But the minimum would be the $44,007, so it would be a wash because levies will go down and that charge would take its place. So that would be the zero sum.
But that doesn't cover the village's capital asset when they buy a fire truck.
No, it doesn't. That would still be a borrowing.
Okay, that's not affected by this.
No, not at all. This is just operation.
If I remember correctly, we talked about buying a fire truck and building a brand new fire house.
This year from fire and EMS, we're looking at a fire truck, an ambulance, and the chief wants a squad command vehicle for EMS. So we're looking at three vehicles this year. For next year.
When you say chief, you're talking chief of the EMS.
So,
What's the ticket number?
so the, so I want to clarify, $44,007. Is that a one-time thing or that's a yearly thing?
No, it's a one-time thing, but it is forever. So we have our levy limit.
Okay.
So this would be a reduction from our allowable levy limit. One time, 1 year. That doesn't come back.
Okay.
So to translate, it would make sense for us to basically, whatever special fee we would assess, to assess for at least that amount.
That's what,
every year.
Yes.
At least that, because that's gonna cover the
reduction of levy.
yeah, like I said, that's the zero sum. If you want to charge the full amount, then you have that extra $50,086 in general fund capacity. But if not, then the 44,007, that's a wash.
And the capital, whether it be a new
Whatever.
That's
parks or for forestry, or if we buy a tree planting, one of those things that, we were planting those big trees. Capital or not, anything that's in a capital budget does not apply in either one of these. Now, if we decided to pay for that out of the general fund, then it would apply, right?
Well,
Would apply.
yeah, I mean, you could increase the special charge to cover debt service payments.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say the same thing. This is another opportunity to increase revenue. Again, neither one of these, I don't have any interest in jacking up people's taxes. So it's a flexible option and we get to crunch time to say, hey, we're $40,000 short and we don't have any other way to do it. We're gonna have a hard time cutting services. We could take a serious look at these. Again, I don't know that we need to or absolutely have to use them, but it seems like it gives us some flexibility. That's it. So I'll make a motion to same thing, pursue the special fire protection special charge, putting that structure in place. No amount set up. That obviously is happening during budget time, but that would be my motion.
Second.
Further discussion? We roll on this one too, please, Mayor.
Trustee Bateman,
No.
trustee Campbell,
No.
trustee Casmar,
No.
trustee Ward,
No,
trustee Ziegler,
Yes.
trustee Zerbis,
Yes.
president Larson.
Yes.
Fails on a 4-3.
Okay.
Or 3-4, sorry.
Through. So discuss and consider an increase to the deduct meter fee.
Oh, so I can talk about this one if you don't mind. Our deduct meter fee currently is a weird number. It's like, I want to say 127.50. 27,885, which tends to bring a hardship just from an administrative point. If someone comes in and pays with cash, it's an awkward number to try and make change for. It also makes it really hard just when we're doing the books and stuff. So utility coordinator has asked that we just bump that up to a nice even 230, and that's all we're asking for. It's just to make it for ease of administrative use. It's not, like I said, we're talking $2.15.
I'll make a motion
Go ahead.
to change deduct meter fee to 230, resolution number 2024-14.
And this was I'll second, this was a recommendation from Public Works, so.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carry.
I just want to clarify something because I have a neighbor that's looking at doing this and the way this is written. So this installation, application installation, this is only the village's portion of this. This does not include the additional plumber.
That's correct.
It's to buy the
So
meter.
make that sure that's
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
that's
you.
correct.
Thank you.
I had mine put in last year.
I've had mine in for many years. It's paid for itself every year.
Okay, next is discuss and consider resolution 2024-13, no parking. Resolution.
The police committee is recommending passage of this resolution to install no parking signs in the industrial park. The police department was approached by Custom Craft and Counter Space. They are having issues getting semis in and out of their businesses for deliveries. And Maren had a map of where the signs would go, but it would be directly across the street from Custom Craft on Enterprise Drive and Counter Space on Countryside Drive.
Oh.
The,
There it is right there.
yeah, that's it.
Sorry.
The upper part of the photo, that's where Custom Craft is. It would again put no parking sign, no parking between signs on the south side of Enterprise. And then over by Charlie's Bark Park would be no parking between signs. So those two businesses could get semis in and out of their lots for deliveries. The police committee again has recommended approval of this resolution.
I'll move we approve resolution 2024-13.
Second.
All right, so Gary made a motion to approve resolution 2024-13, seconded by Deb. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Next is discuss and consider additional stop signs on the north side.
So the police committee has sent up to us the putting in 2 stop signs. We do have a map that I gave everyone. We would be looking at putting a stop sign at Boulevard and Bell and Parkway and John. Right there by Blazer Park.
We don't have a resolution for these tonight?
I don't have anything. I don't know what's necessarily needed, if the resolution is needed.
So we've done how we've done stop signs in the past, so.
I don't know, I can ask legal, but I don't think it's be required personally. It's your determination if stop sign should be placed, but I can always, if you guys approve it tonight, I can always have legal come back with a resolution if that's something that we would feel more comfortable with. I personally don't know if there'd be a need for it, but if legal feels like they'd rather have that, then if you approve it tonight, I'll have legal come back.
I'll make a motion that we place those 2 additional stop signs on the north side.
Second.
Okay. So motion to play 2 additional, is it at 2 intersections? It's more than 2 stops.
No, just those are just one way, sure. They come to a T intersection, so it'd be at the east-west road.
Got it. Okay, so just two, so placement of 2 additional stop signs on the north side. Motion made by Deb, seconded by Tony. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Next is discuss and consider additional handicap parking signs.
So this is something else that came from police committee. We'd like to put a handicap right here on the west end of Village Hall. And then also at 112 West Main, right where the driveway's cut out there. We also had talked about moving the handicap sign that's by the, I don't know how to say that wood shop name.
Balladoo.
What's about?
Yeah. Move it down by the gas station on the corner there of Fredericks. We also are asking to have the handicap spot on North Vine by the pharmacy, have a 20-minute parking limit put on that one as well, as it's on the front spot on Main.
You would already have a 15-minute limit there?
No, it's all day.
This one here does. This one, they didn't do
On
that.
Vine Street.
And it was done for the pharmacy, those two. It's not working.
So how many parking spots do we have on Main Street?
Check.
And while you're looking at that, what precipitated this request, Tony?
It was a request from some community members so that we could have handicap parking down by Orleans. It's also was discussed that having a handicap on the west end of Village Hall here would help Marin for voting, because that would be
So
a spot.
to be fair, that is a handicap stop during voting where we're allowed to, we have a temporary handicap sign. And that is already a handicap sign that we put up just during election.
But we said that would help too, GL rehab.
That would be the,
Yeah, I'm just saying that like
it's not the west side, it's the east side of Village Hall.
the east side of Village Hall right here, yeah. During election, I'm not saying it wouldn't be useful for other reasons, but during elections, it's already considered a handicap. In regards to elections with handicap, we have to fix this ramp out back. That's the bigger issue with accessibility, one of them. But that's not that's an aside.
So this seems like quite a few changes. So when we say making these moves and adds, are we talking a sign next to a spot that's, on the cement base? Is there repainting required of where the new spots are to paint the lines? And then where the spots are being removed, is there sandblasting or something involved to remove the existing handicap marking?
Yes, 33-ish parking spots.
So what's the average requirement for business or space relative to percentage? Is it like if they've got 20 spots, they have 2, or is it?
The ordinance lays all that out.
Well,
that's for off-street parking. So,
No, I understand.
It's in ordinance, but it comes from the ADA itself.
And it's not that I'm opposed to necessarily adding more handicap. My concern is that we literally have more business that are coming downtown, and in the next few months, we've got Johnny O's that'll be opening up with dine-in. You've got potentially the garage opening up something, and if we start taking up half of the parking spaces or 20% of the parking spaces with handicap spots, I'm a bit sensitive to that.
So it's adopted in our ordinance. It's a part of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it on the ADA website says 1 to 25 spaces, the minimum number of accessible parking is 1, 26 to 50, it's 2, 51 to 75, 3, so on and so forth.
So basically, we'd be required to have 2.
So adding another one down wouldn't.
Well, it sounds like we're doing 2 or 3 more.
No, I think you're moving one from down here, down this way a little bit. Then we're adding two new.
Oh, it's adding two to, we've already got two, which meets the requirement. And we're adding two more.
Well, the one is coming up.
Right?
That's still in downtown.
But that one on Vine Street's going to a 20 minutes,
Going to a 20-minute.
strictly for the pharmacy, not for other, well, it could be for other businesses, but I don't know how you can do other businesses at 20 minutes.
I'm sorry, figure out.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry.
Right now, there's 8 signs in the downtown area. There are 3 by the Senior Citizen Center,
Yeah, but that's not.
2 by the pharmacy, 2 by the old restaurant and by Green Street. There's 2 on Green Street, and then the 1 by Woods of Balladu. So there are 8 signs in the downtown area.
So my initial concern and why I asked the question is, because I'm all for with putting the spots where they make more sense, is there's a cost involved, and in 3 to 4 years, the Highway 69 project's coming through also. So it's all going to be redone there again. So any expense we're having has a fairly short lifetime. Just putting that out there.
That's a good point.
This doesn't necessarily speak to that point, but we do have $10,000 in this year's budget earmarked for painting in the capital budget. For painting lines and curb and whatever.
For either can Tom or Jim answer, when we did the ones on Vine Street by the senior center, we painted those, right?
Yes.
Can we paint on the state highway? Do one of you know?
We used to,
Okay,
but then they came in and they changed the regulation for the length of them. That's why you'll see some and there's like a 4 or 5 foot gap in between them. The state did that the last time they went over the highway here.
The reason I was at the meeting and the reason they were getting rid of the one way down doesn't make any sense.
It's worthless.
So they want to bring it up so it's closer for people to handicap to get into Borland. It's a bear to get into Borland Park anyways. And out here, the thing was that she would not have to pull it in and out. It would be there. And you know why the other one is want to be to 20 minutes? Because somebody hogs it for the whole day. So that's not right. So you could also make the other ones handicapped till 6 PM. I've seen signs like that. You can park in handicapped after a certain amount of time.
Right.
So you could make those, whatever time the business closes or whatever, you could say handicap till, and then you can park there. But the ones by the drugstore, those were meant to be for the drugstore. They only put the 20-minute one on the street and not the off street. So like I said, it's hogged all day long. And a person that is handicapped that wants to get in there and there's cars around can't use that spot.
It's there all day.
So it's logical. I mean, it's just logical. To change it to 20 minutes, and if you want to do it till 6 o'clock or whatever time the drugstore's closed, fine and dandy.
Instead of moving that one down there up a little ways, could we move it farther down this way?
Instead of, for Boylan's. I said for Boylan's.
Well, yeah, we were gonna move closer up towards the beginning of the street. Well, what's there? Let's move it down farther. On the street.
Wasn't that by Francis?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was gonna be that spot.
That one spot there.
Yeah, the one spot
Yeah,
there
but-
by Francis.
Well, what's there? Francis.
Borland's.
Yeah, but move it down farther yet, a little bit farther. Weren't we moving it on that corner there by?
You're talking, corner of Main and Fredericks. is
Yeah,
what we-
right by, where you turn to go to the police station.
Yeah,
So why
that's in-
can't we move it down farther?
Oh.
Down Main Street, this way, coming this way.
Going east.
Yeah.
I'd personally like to see a diagram of what we're talking about, because it's difficult for me to conceptualize how many spots we're talking about, what's moving where, like what other spots we're taking away by moving something there, right? Like if we put a spot, for example, and I don't think that's what's being proposed, but right in front of Borland's, like how many spots are we losing there versus how many, like, what are we putting where? Like that would be helpful for me to visualize, but maybe that's just a personal thing, but it'd be helpful for me to
Okay,
see.
so here's Francis, just move this sign that we were gonna put there, move it down this way on the same side a little bit.
I understand, I don't disagree. I want to see what businesses are where and where that is, what the potential impact is.
And we really, because the sidewalks are not that's why I'm guessing that's why the first you use the spot out here, Maren, because it's right by the driveway, so they can get out of their vehicle and up, if they get out on the driver's side and then come up the sidewalk there. So that's the other thing we have to, I think when we talked about it at police, that's what
that's why.
keeping in mind was, the one, I thought we had decided to put one, did we propose to put one on the north side of Main Street?
Yeah, so one at 112 West Main and the other at 24 was the two new ones.
Well, those are both on this side of the street.
Because those are both the addresses that were given to me during.
I thought we were looking at.
That's what
like
we
in
had
front of the old bakery, but maybe that
Yeah,
was.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, in front of the old bakery and in front of 24 West Main Street. One of the concerns that I've had for years is business owners and employees parking on Main Street and taking all the parking stalls.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues that we have with the lack of parking. And with more business coming downtown, it's going to continue to be a concern.
I mean, I'm not opposed to doing like not timed parking, but to have hour limits or a couple hour limits all the way up and down Main Street personally, but that's a different issue than the handicap parking to me.
Right, and then it has to be enforced.
Well, I understand, and I'm not disagreeing with that either, but I think there's the issues that Mike mentioned. I think there's a lot of change happening downtown with businesses. Honestly, I have no idea what the impact of John Yo's downtown is going to be. If there's other restaurants or other eating establishments that come downtown, you're not going to be able to unring the bell if you start messing around with the parking very easily. So that's, unless
Johnny O's open today.
Yeah, but not for dine-in. It's just carry out delivery, which is fine. I'm happy that he did. I'm not doing it. I'm just like, we don't know what, like, when he opens for sit-in rest, like, if he's successful, that's gonna be, we might have a busy downtown except for where the handicap parking spots are, for example.
I suggest this go back to the police committee for discussion. Again.
I'll second that. That's kind of my big thing. It's not, I'm not opposed to it. I just want to see and have a pretty clear picture as to what we're doing and what, I think it would be helpful to understand, like Gabe, what you said, that what the requirements are for ADA compliance purposes. Like, do we have the appropriate ramps and the sidewalks for access points? Does it make sense? All of that sort of stuff.
Get a cost estimate.
Yeah, cost estimate would be helpful as well.
Happy to know we have money in the budget for repainting, which I think would cover it.
Well, I think it's also, Tom raised a good point, that if there are different requirements on state highways versus in the village, that would be helpful to know as well. If we have to give up half of another space because that's the requirement on state highways. That could be significant.
Do we have the template to print the actual handicap?
Yeah. The state painted all these, we used to go, we get the biggest vehicle, we went like every 21 feet, we put them right next to each other. You could see as you go down here, there's some spots, there's like a 4 or 5 foot gap.
Right.
That's what they painted down. We probably lost 2 parking spots on each side.
Yeah, when they, yeah.
Okay, so motion by Deb and I seconded it to have this go back to police committee. All in favor? Aye, opposed? Opposed? So that back to police committee. Next is discuss and consider water tower maintenance RFP.
So this is from the Public Works and Utilities Committee. By Kevin had to leave, but the committee asked him to draft an RFP for the maintenance of the water tower. You guys had a sales rep talk to you months ago. We weren't really confident in the information being provided. So the committee asked Kevin to draft up this RFP. We're looking to send this out to providers.
And the scope comes from the previously done, or the last time the water tower was drained, the suggestions or the recommendations out of that report. So those are the main items that are listed in the scope here, so. So I'll make a motion that we move forward with the RFP for water tower maintenance.
Second.
Remember that discussion and reading through this, the first four points are all essentially external type maintenance, except for, the overflow outlet mesh and painting that. So this is just inside it is, it's going to require draining, and then they're just going to touch up spots, or do we want like a more thorough?
Every 10 years we have to do it. We have to drain it. I think it's 10 years, 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Drained and it's fully inspected that, and then we never know what that amount's going to be until they inspect it and come back and tell us it's either in good shape and we don't have to do much, or we got big problems. So.
How much do we budget for this?
90,000.
I thought that the presentation last year was with regards to the interior was needed because there was rust spots or something that could possibly affect the quality of the water.
Well, that's what number 5 says, doesn't it? The spots on the interior.
Right.
Spots on the interior and exterior. There's both.
So he said it was needed. The interior was needed. For thought of that.
And I thought the presentation, it was not just there was like a service aspect.
Yeah.
It was like an ongoing.
It was 90,000.
relationship.
Yeah, that if the service was, it was a $90,000 a year or whatever the dollar amount was, so that in 5 years or whatever, when we had to drain it again and do it, that would ideally it would have been all paid in advance, more or less.
That's what it was like
and
this.
we wanted to get additional quotes, and it just never happened. So.
Well, I guess maybe that's my question, I suppose, is because this is literally just for a quote for the work to be done, one and done. Do we want to have information or encourage them to provide guidance that is some type of ongoing service? Just to see what that would look like.
Good.
And I know that firm, when they were presenting to us, that was what they presented. It's helpful to just kind of know, I think. Maybe not.
I think so. Some of you do ongoing services, they can spread their costs out.
Correct.
What kind of ongoing services?
Same, like ongoing service to do the same thing every 10 or 5 or 10 years or whatever.
Prepaid water tower inside now.
No,
Whatever.
painting would be a whole, I mean,
It might be included in.
it could be, but I mean, that's where the one back in.
When they
October
presented, they
was.
talked about, like, they would be painting in and out.
Yeah.
I don't, like, I don't know what other services they offer relative to that, but initially, if I was thinking of ongoing services, and I'm not requiring that, I guess is the way I'm envisioning it. If somebody wants to give us a one and done, hey, we can do it for 75, that's helpful. But if there's somebody that'll do it for 75 and they then know the state of our equipment and they'll do it for 50 in 10 years, I might be willing to sign that contract to say that's gonna save us,
Maybe make it an alternate.
less inflation, so it's, I don't know, I don't have any idea, but like an ongoing maintenance, that seemed to be their niche in terms of that specific business.
Yeah.
No idea how many businesses are out there like that, so it's not my expertise. So,
Yeah, probably, I think Kevin's saying 3 or 4, just off the top of his head.
which is, but is that, do I need to make a motion or do something
Approve the
different?
RFP, and then the dates are kind of fungible a little bit. Once I
Okay.
get these notes back to Kevin, he'll get it out.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, this is about a one and done.
Yeah, should I?
RFP, do we need to amend the motion to accommodate what I'm asking or what I'm describing?
Or I could
Does that
withdraw
make
that
sense?
motion and then we just refer it back to Public Works and have that added in too, would be the other option.
I don't want to hold up the process if it's an easy edit.
I can be edited. That's not hard. As long as you guys are all on the same page that you want ongoing services included in that RFP, then I can direct Kevin to put that in there. Like, that's not. Probably needs to go back to Public Works.
Okay. So do you want an amendment or you just want to, like,
Whatever you think is best.
I don't want an amendment, but we should probably need an amendment just to include there. I don't.
I would be willing to vote for only repairing the, working on the interior and not the exterior because of our budget situation. So whatever that would be for the absolute necessity, if a screen needs to be put in, the mesh screen, and maybe the interior, like the gentleman was saying, the representative was saying, was the thing. As far as the exterior and the ongoing service, we don't have the money for it. So why don't we just pay for what we just need to have done with interior that is going to prevent any potential water contamination. And there is a savings right there of about thousands.
so this is for an RFP request. So you're saying, you want to limit the RFP to only include those details?
Only what is absolutely necessary at this.
Well, yeah, these first 4 items were from the report from the 2017 report when it was drained and inspected at that point. So,
Yeah, but it's exterior for cosmetics, right? Or is that?
well, there's other issues with keeping the,
Probably doesn't, the outside probably has to be maintained.
Well, that was,
yeah.
so it's probably deteriorated since then.
I mean, you can't, because you get, I'm guessing, you know, I forget what's all on here, but, pleated, yeah. Overcoat, the outside was on there, because I'm guessing if it's too bad, you know.
Well, personally, I think you should try to wash it off first.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that's just mildew and stuff from the trees and all that, all the mildew there. And then I don't know if there's like a hatch door, they have something you're supposed to do with.
Yep.
It's laying flat on the ground. There's no reason for that. We could slap a coat of paint on it.
Blast and paint the valve vault hatch.
Yeah, it's a regular hatch door that it's just got a regular lock on it. You can open it up with your hand. I mean, it's kind of probably one of their add-ons or whatever, but that would be something that it's no real need for them to do it. We could do that. It's just got its regular iron base around it and everything, and we could take care of that. And for the mesh screen, I quite don't understand what they're asking there. There is the big drain. It's got a drain, the plastic drain that goes down. There is a screen inside it that's made of iron right now. And I think the squares in between it is like 4 inches, 4 by 4.
Yeah, if I remember correctly,
It was to keep rodents out.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was something about state regs that might have changed too, that they wanted.
If it's we go smaller, the biggest problem we have there Okay, with all the leaves and everything there, they come down, okay, then your tower overruns. Well, that's gonna pack in on smaller screens. And then you're gonna have it eroding down the hill. That's one of my concerns.
I guess I don't think it's necessary to limit the RFP. I mean, we could ask for the whole everything, and then in the discussions, limit things from that. So from the aspect of going forward with RFP process, I don't think we need to limit it. We could limit it later.
Because the RFP does ask for a line by line price for those 5 items, so.
I'm gonna make a motion to amend Gary's initial motion to include estimate for ongoing service. Again, similar details or same details, but for ongoing service.
Second.
Okay, so we will start with the amendment. So I made the amendment to Gary's initial motion. Judy?
I'd like to see when the RFP comes in, to do a cost analysis, what would cost public works to do some of that work.
Yeah.
Just to.
It's part of the process, so, okay. So I made a motion to amend Gary's motion to include estimates for ongoing services, seconded by Mike. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, okay, so now the motion on the floor is to move forward with the RFP as outlined, now including the amended language or whatever, the amended language for ongoing services in addition to what's there.
Got it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. And I agree with you, Judy. Once we get all this, we're gonna have another meeting that goes through all the details of pricing and what makes sense and what Public Works can do and what we absolutely need to do. We might even have them come in and present to talk about this, and they can tell us why it's important to do what they want. We can just talk about that tonight. Okay. Whatever, yeah. Next is discuss and consider the creation of guidelines for Class B liquor approval.
This was a discussion, it started at license advisory, but we kind of like to bring it back to you guys. It's important to have board approval before committee does anything. As you know, we have, at the moment, we're specifically talking about Class B liquor licenses. These are the ones for restaurants where they're serving the liquor in-house and being partaken of there. Those are by law. Specific, you're only allowed to have a specific number, whereas other licenses require an unlimited amount. We have 6. We're really close to getting a potential 7th, which we definitely have someone interested in. As we continue to grow as a community, specifically, we're talking about in the future, and we have available licenses. We have available new businesses that would be interested in having liquor licenses. The License Advisory Committee is looking for guidance to what they want to talk about. How do we fairly distribute our licenses if we're under an issue where 2 entities want one, whether they be whoever those 2 entities are, possible 2 new, we have 2 new restaurants both come in that want a liquor license. We only have 1 license to give. How do we give? They're just looking to set some guidelines for the committee so that in the future, as we are trying to award licenses, we're doing it in a fair and balanced and open manner. And that's where this discussion comes to you guys, is they're basically seeking approval from the board to say, yes, this is something you guys need to consider doing, and then they can go forth and they can have that discussion, they can set their guidelines, and then they have an idea where we're going in the future, because there is a very real possibility where we would have those kind of issues.
So you're talking like some criteria or a rubric or something?
Yes.
You have to determine.
It has been frowned upon, but we could absolutely use that. So, but yes, a guideline or a rubric or saying, instead of just guessing on where, like, if we have two applications that come in the same time and they're like, we'll just give it to whoever was first. Well, that's not necessarily always doesn't make the most sense, especially if you're looking at your community.
I'll piggyback on this. So I will say this round of the conversation started in license advisory. But it actually started a year or two ago in economic development as part of a, hey, how do we bring businesses into town and how do we want to, maybe we need to free up liquor licenses to do that. This isn't to suggest that there's any appetite for doing anything of the sort. I'm envisioning this, and again, I don't even know if there's appetite on the committee. I don't know if there's appetite on this board even to do this. But to initiate the conversation, if it's worthwhile for us to go through to sort of put together guidelines or a mechanism for us to evaluate applications for liquor licenses. I will say liquor licenses belong to the village. They are a scarce resource of the village, and it makes sense for us to have some mechanism to basically evaluate applications for this on an annual basis, even if we have as many liquor licenses as we need, or don't, we have an abundance of liquor licenses, for example. But I think whatever the license advisory committee comes up with, it will come back to the board, obviously, for approval, editing, whatever, relative to what you think is best. But this is really just to say, does this even make sense? If the board feels don't even go there, we're just going to do first come, first serve, and that's the way it's going to work, then
I would point out that you guys on the board are technically the entity that does approve, that has the final say on whether someone gets liquor. License advisory can only recommend to you on what they feel you guys should do, but it's your approval here at board before we actually hand out liquor license from the clerk's office.
So I remember this conversation was gonna happen at EDC. They never did come up with never got much further than that with some.
they got to
Draft
a point where
guidelines
they
or-
started to talk about guidelines, but then
shut it down.
kind of said that really belongs with the license advisory committee. We took it to license advisory committee. We started to talk about it briefly, but we immediately got to a point where it's like, you know what, let's talk to the board before we even go down this path, because if it's EOA, once it gets here, like it doesn't make any sense to put any energy towards the conversation at that level. I don't have any idea, and I literally am not advocating for any outcome as to what happens. Like, I think there is, personally, I think there's a value to having an evaluation mechanism for that committee to follow that, but I don't want it to be so restrictive that it's like, well, if you've got to be open this many hours, or you've got to do this, or you've got to do that. I don't think those are valuable metrics, but I think there is a value because there is turnover on the committees as well, right? So to say, hey, this is how we go about, and even for vendors, like for businesses to say, hey, these are the criteria that we look at relative to this, as we evaluate liquor licenses. That's so, anyway, I'm doing a lot of talking, so. Judy, you had a comment?
Well, I did. The license at Carlos over at
Riverville?
Yeah, he has got the reserve licenses, which was $10,000, which Pete Ringenberg had before him. So Pete got a normal liquor license, and then the reserve sat because that's the one.
Well, so the difference between a Class B reserve license and a Class B regular liquor license, if you want to call it regular, is simply the time frame of when you got it. So the way licensing works, and don't ask me why, is based on your population in 1997, you get so many licenses based on that. It was like, I don't remember if it's 500 to a license or whatever. So in 1997, Belleville had enough residents in it to have 5 licenses. When you grew enough to get the 6th reserve license, yes, you had to pay $10,000 for it. There are a couple extra rules at the inception of it. Other than that, And as long as Carlos holds it, it functions the exact same way as a regular Class B license does.
Correct, but my comment relates to the fact that instead of paying 10,000 every year,
Nobody pays.
He doesn't.
Nobody pays 10,000 every year. Carlos pays.
It's a one-time fee that anybody that gets a liquor license going forward is gonna have to pay $10,000 to get the license. So when we get a new license,
So, yeah, that, when we get that seventh one, the second reserved one, that first time round, it'll be $10,000. But the renewal after that will be whatever our base renewal is. So
so that would make the one Carlos holds become an unreserved.
it's still a
It's still-
reserve license because everything over 5 would be a reserve license.
but he already paid his fee for it.
I understand that. But he could turn it in because it's a reserve
It
license.
doesn't belong to him.
He could turn it back into the village and get a normal license based on population.
It doesn't work like that. The reserve licenses are every license that we get after the 1997. They will always be reserved. Reserve is just you have to pay for it one time. And then he re-ups for it and just re-ups for it.
Just like everybody else.
Because everybody else, he's not guaranteed it.
Yeah, it's just that initially was issued after 97, so it's considered reserve.
Every future license will always be a reserve license
From now on.
from 1997.
Everything higher than so we have 1 through 5 liquor licenses, and I could name it, but I won't. The 5 businesses that currently own those. Carlos owns the 6th one. If we have a 7th one, we send that out. But the only way you wouldn't get a reserve license at this point is if one of those first 5 relinquish their renewal, and then we would. But say somebody that has the second license and they decide not to renew, and we give Carlos the second number designation, doesn't change anything about how he would renew. It would,
Benefit to
it does,
having a non-reserve license.
there's really, after that first year, there's not a lot. But that's kind of beyond the
Let's
scope.
go with this. Connie, do you have a comment, question?
No, I'm gonna comment. One of the reasons that they want a little guideline here is because I went to the meeting and they were talking about the license, how you get it and how it works. And I said, well, when Larry Rosley quit, his license was there. Carlos called here and asked about the license. I called here and asked about getting the license. And Petey called about getting the license. And he already had a license. He bought him and Tracy bought the $10,000 one.
Reserve.
Why he wanted Larry Rosley's, I don't know. But I got told, when I called again to ask about it, I got told by Brian. He said, well, let's see. You got Petey and you got Carlos. Who do you think's gonna get it? That is how that license got that way. So there's gotta be some way that doesn't happen again, because that was pretty rotten.
So I can't speak to what happened in the courthouse store, and I won't.
I think the point that Connie's making, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the point is that a mechanism
yes
would be helpful.
Which is
so that
what we're literally
everybody understands. So I think that's
Yeah.
That's all, yeah. I'm fine.
Jenna?
Motion?
That this was also proposed by Mike O'Connor, and Connie also agreed, where this is for all new businesses going forward. We're applying for liquor
As
license.
part of the discussion, the guidelines are a little, I would think we would talk a little more openly specific to that, but we are going to have to make decisions in the future that we are just asking for.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, Jenna. That was part of the conversation. I think that would be something that the committee would consider as we come up. Understand, yeah, no, so there definitely were comments. There certainly is a fear like that this would take away licenses from existing businesses, and I think we need to be sensitive to that.
Well,
Absolutely.
small town, the rumors going around when this first came up,
yeah,
it was gonna be based on the number of hours, the days are open.
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
so let me put this out there, because that was also part of the conversation, I think an important aspect of this.
if the committee moves forward with this, I would expect that the committee is going to bring in and welcome in businesses that have existing liquor licenses to share their insight and input as to what elements of the process should look like. I think businesses that would be interested in acquiring a liquor license, I want residents to have input on that process so they understand. But before we started ringing that bell, I wanted to get the board aware of this because, like, I know I'm really loved by this board already, but I would have even more friends here if we decided to like stir the pot with everybody in town relative to liquor licenses, because you guys would get calls left and right, I'm sure, and I'd be getting those love letters. So
I always figured that's why it kind of got dropped at EDC is because
no,
it's an unpopular discussion.
No, it wasn't that. I think it went to a point at EDC, but ultimately, I think Gabe and I kind of said, yeah, it really needs to go through license advisory because that's really where it belongs.
Too many rumors were swirling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's the base. So
you want a motion to move forward?
Yeah,
Okay,
here.
I'll move that we have the license advisory committee move forward with developing guidelines, criteria, whatever, for the approval of, or for the recommendation of liquor licenses.
And I specifically say Class B liquor. Thank you.
Yep.
Second.
Motion by Gary, seconded by Mike. I can't even believe it's not even that late yet. So, okay, so motion by Gary, seconded by Mike for, to basically send this back to license advisory to pursue a set of guidelines for, Class B liquor licenses. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're opposed or?
I'm opposed to it.
Okay, so that's a no or a?
That's a, no, I'm sorry. You said for, opposed, I said aye.
So I got 6 yeas and 1 nay.
No discussion after the motion.
Call for a vote. So if you had the discussion, you could have.
I just wanted to clarify the record that it was dropped in June of last year, but in January it was resurrected at the EDC. And on February 8th, the recommendation approved by everybody on the board except for O'Connor, or O'Connell, whatever the gentleman's name is, was to send it to the licensing committee for approval of the rubric that was includes, in my opinion, invasive, as I've been a business owner for over 20 years, very invasive questions to a business owner that currently has a license. And so I know this is after the vote and it's going back, but I don't believe any current license holders were included at all in the discussion. I was at this meeting and my fear was this, is you're going to have somebody who's going to say, you mean I have to apply for my license next year? And if I own that business and if you wanted to know how many employees I have working and I get points for that or points for this and how much liquor am I selling, how much food and everything else is too invasive for a business owner, gets into proprietary information. And I am absolutely against this, especially without any input whatsoever from any person that carries a license.
Well, we may all be against that. But we haven't seen the recommendation.
Two things.
Minutes.
That was the list of questions that potentially could be part of it that EDC sent over to license advisory.
I'm just clarifying because you guys both said, you and Gabe just said that it stalled in committee and was dropped.
I didn't say it was stalled. I said it, we sent it, we gave them guidance that it needed to go to license advisory is what I said.
Well, it got dropped in June last year, according to the minutes. And in February, it was resurrected with a recommendation. I'm looking at it right here to go to licensing committee with these. I mean, even things of
Yeah, but it's not, that wasn't,
Encourage zoning
that's not the
issues, all
rubric,
kinds
though.
of stuff.
That's literally ideas as to the, I was at the meeting and actually part of the committee that made that recommendation that it would go to license advisories to put the information together so we didn't start from scratch. And there's no indication that we're even going to use that stuff. That's one thing. The other thing is, everybody that has a liquor license has to apply for it every single year. There's a form for that. They're part of the meeting agenda
understand.
minutes that we review at this level every single year.
But most municipalities, when they're going to have a destruct or deconstruct type conversation with a bar owner, it's if there are multiple police calls, the owner has been involved in enforcement or whatever you want to call it, a violation of the law with regards to liquor in any way. Those are reviews that are done. This, if I'm a business owner and this is put out there, it's like I have to audition for my license. There's no guarantee here. And even your comments afterward, after you had, prior to the vote motion was, well, maybe we should stir things up. Well, I would really hate to see Borland's or this gentleman across the street or J&M say, the heck with this, I'm going to move my bar somewhere where I'm not going to get people that do not own a business, that do not carry a liquor license, making judgments on whether I'm going to be able to carry on business in this municipality or not. And because nobody consulted that I've ever heard of with any licensee, this is absolutely invasive to a business owner that carries a license.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling you. It was my.
So Kurt, I would encourage you to go and watch our video on YouTube because it will be up in a few days to listen. And I literally just was describing that we would be inviting businesses to come in to have and be part of this conversation before we came up with any of those metrics or anything that we would evaluate that might not even include any of the things that are part of what EDC presented and brought over to license advisory. I also want to be very clear that I absolutely didn't say that I have an interest in stirring up the pot. I said I didn't want to stir up the pot until if we wanted to do that, because I knew how this would work, that if we're going to go down that path, I wanted the board to be fully aware of it before the license advisory committee starts going down that path.
And doesn't the police department make a recommendation to license advisory anyways?
They do, but it's very limited. That was part of the discussion. It's not necessarily that a questionnaire would be done to, again, we're getting into the weeds relative.
Yeah, no, I'm talking more the violations and stuff, you know.
They don't go, yeah, I don't think there's an ask for that right now. It's more like, hey, is it good, right? With the fire goes and does different stuff, so.
One sentence.
Right.
But they don't have any issues or there haven't been any issues or whatever.
If we have had issues with licensed establishments in the past, the owner of that establishment has been brought into the license advisory committee and spoken to. So it has been done, and it's before many of you have been on the board.
Looking at the EDC minutes from February 8th, there's a reference to a link with examples from other municipalities on what they have for an allocation process, and then what are links to our current documents that we require. There's no mention of a rubric or any criteria being defined or in the process of being defined for Belleville.
Read the minutes right there.
I'm looking at them right now.
Right after number 9 adjournment, it says recommendations to liquor licensing committee. It's all in bold print. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those were, yeah, there were recommendations given. We had a lengthy discussion at EDC. I came in and just advised.
All I'm saying is you guys held in committee and it was stopped in June, but it was resurrected the first part of this year. And this went to licensing committee. The chair is here right now. She can probably confirm that she's been asked to,
Once again, EDC did provide recommendations. They're on that minutes. That doesn't mean that liquor license picked up those recommendations and ran with it. If anything, we had a totally different conversation at License Advisory Committee in relation to wanting to make sure that you guys were on board before they went on and talked about any kind of metrics or rubric or anything. So just because some other committee recommended something doesn't mean liquor license will pick it up.
We okay to move on from that?
Yep.
Okay, next. Reports, boards, committees, commissions, Community Development Authority. Mike, anything?
Yeah, CDA met, we discussed, the welcome sign project and, going out for additional proposals. Due to the fact that once reviewing in detail the, proof that we have approved in the past, it did not include the cost of masonry work, which was a foundation and a large portion of that sign, which would have been probably thousands of dollars more. So we are moving ahead with getting some more proofs. Then we also discussed the facade grant. The biggest change with that is that looking to make that available to all businesses. Community rather than just a focus downtown. That's it.
Thank you. Public Works, Property and Utilities.
Nothing really. I mean, yeah, nothing. All the recommendations came to the board.
Communications and miscellaneous business, excuse me, news and announcements, anything, Gabe, that you can think of? Upcoming community events. What are our guidelines for 4th of July fireworks? We're getting fireworks last night already, so.
Somebody actually called in and we looked at the ordinance to be very specific. Bill's gone. So don't be stupid would be the clerk's.
It's great.
Can we put that in the ordinance?
I would love to put don't be stupid in the ordinance. I'll just write that in. And if you have any questions, I'm gonna pass the buck to the police department. Reach out to the police department.
Future agenda items, I think we talked about one already.
Yeah. There's not a time actually scheduled for the July.
The July meeting.
Yeah, let me just look. July meeting will have the strategic plan, hopefully documented, like the full pretty picture. That way you can just approve that and we can be done with it. We will have the audit. And I think it's in black.
We're getting close on.
Oh, and the garbage recycling.
That's garbage recycling. We're getting close on, well, Broadway is a different conversation, but the parks, fees for developers.
Yes, I think we're waiting for Kevin to get us some numbers, but that probably might.
I think if we can get that done ASAP, I think, because that's time sensitive. Okay, anything else there? If not, closed session, the Village of Belleville Village Board will enter into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subsection E for the purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. The village board may reconvene into open session and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. And this is relating to establishing a negotiating position regarding the local fire and.
I'll be.
Oh, Barry made a motion. Second. Seconded by Mike.
Okay.
And we have to do a roll call.
Deb.
All right.
Well, thank you. Trustee Beenan.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Ziegler.
Yes.
Service,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
We're in closed session is 8:39.